Tear gas is apparently what they call a less than lethal weapon. I don't know about you, but to me that's a terrifying way to classify something. Less than lethal just sounds like the replacement for enhanced interrogation.
Misinformation.
Yeah, I know the videos are trending in a more serious direction right now, and I know that YouTube is going to throttle this wee baby channel as a result, but whatever. Blah blah blah, shut up, what is tear gas? Well, according to Wanda Wikipedia, we're on a first name basis. Tear gas is a chemical weapon that causes... Actually, wait. It's tear gas.
I can't get over.
Tear gas.
It's so delicious now. It tastes fantastic. Wow. I can't get over.
Tear gas.
The whole new taste you won't get over.
Let's show you how it works. When tear gas is released into the air, it can cause respiratory pain, skin irritation, bleeding, and blindness. Call 911 now to complete your order. The formal name for what tear gas is a lacrimator, or a lacrimator. But who cares? Like I mentioned at the top of the video, tear gas is less than lethal, which just means it's not intended to kill anybody. It's only meant to cause extreme pain and respiratory difficulty. That said, there are a few cases where people have been killed by tear gas, but the majority of people survive. However, this is in the same way that people survive waterboarding, so living through it doesn't mean you escaped a nightmarishly traumatic experience. But we'll get to the nightmare later.
Nightmare, 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 nightmare.
You can't do that.
First, let's get a little history up in this biz. Tear gas was developed around the turn of the 20th century. I put this video together pretty quickly, so I don't know the exact date, but we'll just say sometime between 1890 and 1915 is when governments started using tear gas. Tear gas was used in World War I by most militaries involved in the conflict, and in 1919 the US Chemical Warfare Service, yeah, that was a real thing, invented the tear gas canister grenades that we all know today. At this time in US history, labor unions were really beginning to form and take off, and people were just demanding better lives in return for all of their labor. So as you might guess, there were a shit ton of worker strikes at this time, and the police were the people who were sent in to beat the shit out of those protesters.
These pictures of the Minneapolis truck drivers' strike, typical of disorders flaring up in various cities, show a spirit of lawlessness which has no place in America. 5,000 are in the milling mob, trying to prevent trucks from delivering needed food to the city. A strong guard of police and distribution of nightsticks to citizen deputies fails to check the crowd, which closes in an ugly move. Outnumbering the police 10 to 1, they attack in gangs.
Tear gas canister grenades made dispersing these crowds a hell of a lot easier, which of course we all now know from seeing it on the news every day. And now that the basic history is out of the way, let's do the nightmare part. There are a couple different types of gases that can be qualified as tear gas. All of them are scary, but CS gas is the one that people tend to cite the most when they're talking about the effects. And what are those effects? First, nothing. It takes about 20 to 60 seconds before the fun really starts. This gives you a little bit of time to walk away from the scene before you start struggling to breathe. And speaking of, that's what happens next. You'll begin to cough, your eyes will experience a searing pain, and you will cry whether you want to or not. And again, you will find it very difficult to breathe. If you're ever in a space with tear gas, please do walk away, do not run. If you run, your lungs are naturally going to try to take in more air, and by doing so, they will take in more of the gas. This will both prolong your symptoms and make them worse. When it comes to OC gas, which is popularly known as pepper spray, you may experience the same symptoms and also the temporary loss of motor function.
Oh, yes. Oh my God.
I'm sorry I got you mace.
That's okay.
Tear gas is of course worse because gas can get into your lungs and eyes way faster and way more easily than spray can, and you can't really run away from gas in the same way you can run away from a can of pepper spray. So there's that. Tear gas is a chemical weapon, and it can hurt like hell. But once you know it's a chemical weapon, the natural follow-up question is, how is that legal? Aren't chemical weapons supposed to be against the rules? Well, yes and no. If you paid attention in high school history, then you probably have heard of the Geneva Convention. If you're unfamiliar, this is where the countries of the world got together after World War I to basically agree upon what are now called the rules of war. That's a pretty big simplification, to be honest, but for our purposes, that's what the Geneva Conventions were about. If you'd like to know more, just Google it. There's Plenty of info out there for you. Part of these rules are what's called the Geneva Protocol, which basically outline what is okay versus not okay when it comes to countries killing each other. In this agreement, all signing countries, including the United States, agreed that asphyxiating gases were just against the rules in warfare. All asphyxiating gases, liquids, or substances are banned from use on the battlefield under this agreement. Tear gas is an asphyxiating gas. So when it comes to fighting another country, it's actually a war crime to use tear gas on enemy soldiers. However, the rules of war don't apply to your own citizens, and that's why tear gas is used in the US as well as many other nations across the world today, including China, Russia, France, the Ukraine. I could go on. To put it another way, US soldiers are forbidden to use tear gas against combatants in Afghanistan, but police officers in our country are free to use it against any one of us. So tear gas is both legal and illegal. It just depends who you're using it against. And that's the info about that.
Let's break for breakfast.
Maybe those kids will share their
Tear
tricks
gas.
with a jumping gymnast. Having a workout, kids?
We're having this good, nutritious breakfast with
Tear
tricks.
gas. Tear
Tricks
gas.
with those fruit flavors I fall for?
Let's see your other tricks.
1 and 2 and
Tear
oranges,
gas.
lemons, and grapes. I'll see.
Silly rabbit.
Tear
Tricks
gas.
for kids.
It never works out.